All right, everybody. I'm going to call to order the May 13th, 2021 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear and audible and at an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues so that you may appropriately indicate that when we make the motion that we can all hear each other. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that we can all hear one another. So going through the list, Ms. Aubrey.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. This is Michelle Aubrey, and I am calling from my residence in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Burns.
Good evening. This is John Burns. I am talking to you from my residence, and for some reason I cannot get my camera to turn on. However, I can see everyone.
Understood. Mr. Daniel, as everyone knows, I'm calling in from my residence in Ruston, Virginia. I can hear everyone well so far. Ms. Wan?
Yes, this is Samantha Huang. I'm calling in from Ruston, my own home. I can hear everyone so far.
All right, Mr. Kalinski. Oh, you are muted, Mr. Kalinski.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Steve Kalinski here in my office in the city of Alexandria.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
This is Elise Murray in my residence in Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Orr.
This is Kay Orr at my residence in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, ma'am. I do not yet see Mr. Plumpy on our list unless he's joined us in the last moment. Not seeing him, I'm going to currently mark him as absent. Mr. Zellman.
I'm sorry. I'm present at my home in Burke, Virginia, and I can hear everyone just fine.
All right. At this point, Nicole, is there anyone else I'm missing at this moment? I don't believe so.
No, not that I can tell.
All right, checking the list. Right now, I've got Mr. Plumpy marked as absent. If he joins us later, we'll add him as arriving late. Oh.
I would just ask, what about our newest member, who is Mr. McReynolds, whose name never seems to be on any list?
Fair point, Ms. Aubrey.
He was not able to make this meeting. He did let me know that.
That's true. I will note that both Mr. McReynolds and Ms. Notkins did not indicate that they would be available for this meeting, either by non-response or by indication to Nicole. So let's have that noted in the record that they are not present. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to my vice chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. There you go, Mr. Zellman.
All right.
I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
All right, there's a motion. Does anyone have a second?
Second.
All right, second, I believe that is Ms. Orr. There's a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Abstentions? The motion carries.
All right, as determined by the roll call, 8 members of this ARB are present and therefore satisfy an ARB quorum minimum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Abstentions? The motion carries.
Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the ARB and physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB County website or through phone at 1-844-621-3956 with the access code 173-526-2267. So it is moved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right. It is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and discharge this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kalinski, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Abstentions? And the motion carries.
Finally, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agendas and after each action item, as is standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, is there a second to the motion allowing each member of the public to speak for 3 minutes?
I second.
Second for Ms. Huang, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? And the motion carries.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zellman.
Yep.
Take back that gavel. We're doing
Second
pretty
hand
good. 8 minutes on that. That's not too bad. Next thing on here is virtual meeting WebEx information. Nicole, do you have any information you need to share with people who are watching?
Yeah, just again, for everybody that's attending, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted online within 10 days. Also, if you have any questions for the attendees, please use the Q&A box or chat function in the WebEx. It's down on the bottom right hand and staff will monitor that. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please call WebEx technical assistance at 1-866-799-3293.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Since I did not ask anybody and I don't want to put anyone on the spot, I, will read the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts to kick off our meeting, which is our tradition. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses that will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced. All right, I will remind any applicants we have to try to limit your presentation time to 8 minutes for a first presentation. I don't think we have any resubmissions, so there are no limitations on that. And for workshops, obviously, there are not going to be limitations placed on workshops. The next item we have on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would request, it's been requested after discussion with staff that the second item for action, the ARB 21 WEL02, the proposal for adoption of the Wellington at River Farm Design Guidelines, be deferred to our July meeting. Following some discussion. So I would look for anyone who makes a motion to make that with that deferral in place.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Zellman.
I would move that we adopt the agenda with the following amendment, that ARB-21-WEL-02, the second item for action, be deferred to the July ARB meeting.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinski. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda passes. We now have an agenda. Next thing on the adopted agenda is introduction and recognition of guests. Nicole, do we have any guests or folks we need to introduce?
I believe everybody here is associated with an application. I do have one person in the attendee list. I'm going to unmute you, Andy Miller. I'm not sure if you're with an application or not, but I want to make sure. Hi, Andy. Are you with an application or a guest?
Observing an application for the collections facility.
Okay, great.
Fairfax County Park Authority.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, we have nothing on the consent calendar action items list.
Real
Nicole.
quick.
Sorry.
No, Joe Plumpy just joined us. I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record.
All right. Joe, can you confirm that you can hear us and that you can be heard, please?
Yes, I can hear and see everything. Sorry, it took some challenging time to log in, so thank you so much.
That's all right. We're happy to have you.
Good. Okay.
All right. Mr. Plumpy is with us. He can see and hear us. Excellent. No consent calendar action items, so we'll move on to the items for action. With the changed agenda, we only have one item, and that is ARB-21 RBM01, proposal for a new single-family dwelling in Creekside at Fox Chapel, located at 5680 Willowbrook Lane in the Roby's Mills Historic Overlay District. This one is being presented by Mr. Bruce Gold, who represents the application. Mr. Gold, are you here?
I am. Thank you very much.
All right. Nicole will work with you so you can share any of the content you have, and the floor is yours.
Okay. So on, let's see. Nicole, did I put that share up there or did you?
Sorry, put the what? The sharing? That's me. Did you want to do it yourself?
Oh, no, that's fine. I just hit it and it wasn't reacting. I was like, I hit the same button at the same time and then it didn't move.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that first.
So what this is Creekside Lot 1. We've done 2 communities on either side of Roby's Mill. The one is built out, it's 11 lots, and I brought 3 of those before the board for approval. The Creekside community is on the other side of Roby's Mill, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. So Nicole, if you could go forward. That was the application. If you could go one more. So this is a picture of the historic overlay district. And as you can see, the Roby's Mill is started down in the center there along Pope's Head Road. And the house location is on the end side of the historic overlay district, just inside it there. If you go to the next slide, please. This is an overall picture of the Creekside community. There's 5 lots there. And the red line that you see going across is the historic overlay district. I was able to keep 4 of the 5 homes out of the historic overlay district. However, lot 1, the drain fields are located in the front of the site, and that lot's a little narrower there, which forced the house further back into the historic district. Next slide, please. This is a blow up of the site plan that's been submitted to the county for approval with the grading and the drain field locations. Drain fields have been approved by the health department. Again, it shows the location of the historic overlay district. The dashed line you see in the back is an RPA line where you start to get into some steep slopes. There's probably a 40-foot elevation difference from that line down to the creek. As you can see, I've done minimal grading around the house. The floor elevation, the basement floor elevation is within 1 foot of existing grade. And I have it situated as far away from Pope's Head Road as I can get. Nicole, if you go to the next slide, please. Landscape plan. Again, this lot is surrounded by mature hardwood, so the landscape plan really is just a foundation planting plan with a tree in the front. Next slide, please. The purchaser of this house picked a transitional elevation on the Bedford model. So it's an all brick home on the front with hardy plank on the sides. This rendering does represent the color scheme that they picked. The grades showing on this reflect the grades on the site plan that was submitted. If you could go to the next slide. This is the elevation of the side. Again, it's hardy plank. This is the side of the garage that would be facing Pope's Head Road. Next slide. This is the side facing lot 2. Pretty simple. Next slide, please. And that's the rear elevation of the home. And again, that's based on the grades on the site plan that's being shown there. Next slide. That's a color scheme. I do have a sample box that I can deliver to the county of all of these products once the application is accepted and approved. But for this meeting, we're just doing it on the paper here. Keeping with the Historic Overlay District guidelines, we did not go with any white colors, which was really the big request in the Historic Overlay District. And it's an architectural shingle. Next slide. I took a drone shot to show because having gone through these before, I knew a lot of the questions have been geared towards, can you see this from the mill? So I did a drone shot, and you can see lot 2 that's built there, and its drain field further back. I drew location of the house where it would be sited on that lot. At the bottom of the page of that sheet, you can see a darker area. That's where the Piney Creek is located there. Piney Branch is located. Yes, thanks, Nicole. The mill is off the page further down on the right. I couldn't get it in there with that, but that just shows the proximity to it. And again, I have very minimal clearing around the house. Next slide. What I did is I went down to the creek, and I got these pictures before the leaves got on the trees, knowing that this application was forthcoming. And the arrow is in the direction of the existing house that's built and the cleared drain field that's there. And standing there and looking, you can, it shows you that from that location with all those mature hardwoods, and again, it goes up 40 feet in elevation. There's no visible sign of the existing house where that drain field, which is directly across from where this house will be located. That's all I have for the slides, and I'm happy to take questions on this.
All right, thank you very much, sir. First question is obviously if there are any public comments. Nicole, do you see any members of the public in our chat or anything that might want to comment on this item?
I do not.
All right, seeing as there are none of those, we will go through the roll call of members and let everyone ask questions alphabetically. So, Ms. Aubrey, you are first in the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to thank the applicant for following up from the last presentation where I had requested information about the archaeological survey. I had thought that an archaeological survey had been conducted, and in fact it had, but we had not been given a copy of the report. And so once we saw the report, it's clear that the area where this house is proposed to be built and the drain fields, it looks like there will be no impact on anything of significance. In fact, there's really not any sites of significance on that particular property.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for that. I forgot to include that on the first submission. That was an error on my part. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Halberg, thank you very much. Mr. Burns.
Yes, thank you for the additional information. At the last meeting, I was primarily concerned about the potential visibility of this site because it's up the hill from the mill. Thank you for taking pictures and the leaves are off the trees. And it appears as though that the house will basically not be visible from the mill, which was my primary concern. I do have a question though. Is there a reason why the roof pitch is so steep on this house? It seems unusually tall for the style and proportions of the house.
It was part of the design on it. If you look at the other architecture, what we have in the community, we have some steeper roof pitches on those as well.
Am I correct in presuming that the midpoint of the roof will be 35 feet above grade?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. Wan?
Mr. Chairman, I have no comment.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kalinski?
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. I'm sold or convinced, looking at the topography and the applicant's picture here that's up on the screen with the hardwoods, that this isn't going to be a problem. So I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray?
Other than some concerns about the pitch of the roof, I have no issues, and it's obviously not something I'm going to follow my sword over. I also have some concerns about the wraparound of the brick, and I will let Mr. Plumpy address that.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Orr?
No further comment.
All right, Mr. Plumpy, it gets to you pretty quick.
No problem. Really, I have no issues with the architecture or the placement of the house. The view is shielded by the hardwoods, as everybody's mentioned. I did not understand the comment regarding the wraparound of the brick. I know it's just the front facade, then after that, it's hardy plank on the other side. Didn't bother me too much because what's reassuring is that this is a darker color house, it appears, as opposed to a bright white house. Okay, just the water table you're saying, the wraparound?
Yeah, Joe, I actually have an option on there to put stone as well, if you look in the materials. So I think this customer is going to end up going with the stone in lieu of the brick.
Oh, stone for the entire house?
No, for the water table where the wraparound is.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's great. And I really welcome the darker colors here. And I think that'll go better than an all white house or a very bright house, especially in the distance when, but this is perfect. I have no comments, no issues. Roof line to me is low compared. I have a 12-12 pitch on my house, which is very tall. It's a colonial style house, but I am fine with what you presented, Bruce. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Where am I now? Mr. Zellman.
I have nothing to add. I'm good with it. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, I think that was going to say a 1. So getting to my comments now, I really do appreciate that you did drone photography. We are living in an age where that is actually a question or a tool that can be utilized. We frequently have questions about developments like this and their visibility, and we always get pictures. Thank you for doing it before all the leaves came on. That is very appreciated too, because we get a lot of pictures, saying, oh, look,
I knew
so
you thought I'd think I was trying to hide it.
I don't know if we think that, but we definitely do get, obviously in Fairfax, we get a very different view in the fall, but the drone, I think, is even more helpful because it does show the amount of vegetation in between this lot and the creek itself. So that was very helpful.
I can assure you it's going to be done well. I live in this community.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, I think that was my only question was about the rear elevation, and it looked like it was painted concrete, and not going down at the bottom of the foundation. And you're saying that they will likely be the stone material instead in that elevation.
Yes.
Yes.
On the rear, they're going to put a patio, but they don't have it designed yet.
All right.
There's a door that comes out of that sunroom to the left. So
Understood.
they're going to come after we build the house for them, then they're going to come back in and do a patio there.
Well, and hopefully they know about all the eccentricities of where their lot is located in the future.
They absolutely do.
So we may look to see them at some time in the future. With that, I don't have any other comments myself. So I would thank you again for your presentation, and I would look for any ARB member that would like to make a motion. I think you're talking, Jason, but I can't hear you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Certainly, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the ARB approve action item ARB-21-RBM-01 proposal for the new single-family dwelling in Creekside at Fox Chapel, located at 5680 Willowbrook Lane in the Roby's Mill Historic Overlay District, tax map number 107-1 _09, as submitted and presented at the May 13, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 Historic Overlay District.
All right, thank you, sir. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'd like to second it. Sure.
All right, seconded by Mr. Plumpy. All right, hearing no other comments on that motion, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much, sir. Nicole and the DPC staff will be in touch with you with any additional information they have to provide of you following the approval.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
And special thanks to Nicole. I appreciate you walking me through this again. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us out of our action items and moves us into our items for workshop session. Again, these items are not for approval and do not require public comment. The only one we have for workshop session for this month is a proposal for renovation of building W-35 adjacent to the Workhouse Arts Center that's located on 9541 Workhouse Way. This one is covered within the Workhouse area identified in the MOA. And I do not know who will be presenting this one. Oh, yes, I do. Here we go. This will be presented by Jocelyn Miller of Glaven Homes, who is representing the applicant. Ms. Miller, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much.
All right. Nicole, are you doing the presentation, or is this...
I was going to ask, what would you prefer?
I'm happy to share my screen if that's simpler.
Yeah, let me give you permissions. 1 second. Okay, it should be coming over to you momentarily.
Great. Right. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Right now we can just see you in a very cool, very rustic office space or a basement.
Sorry. Yeah, rustic office space. All right, let me try that one.
There we go. I think you're,
Okay.
Yes. Okay,
Apologies.
there we go. Yes, we can see your
Thank
screen
you.
now.
All right. And I also wanted to say, so I am Jacqueline Miller with Gavel Homes Architecture, and I also have Amy Wells and Liz Crowell with the Archaeology Department with Fairfax County Park Authority. If you would like us to speak to the archaeology as well, I know we submitted the archaeology report as well with our submission. So we're happy to talk about both. I just wanted to confirm.
Okay, well, I guess we'll let you do your presentation first, and then when we go through all the questions, I know that Liz is there, and we can definitely have her chime in as she feels necessary.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, thank you again for meeting with us today. So I'm gonna start with the overlay map. So as we wrote in our submission, this project is building W35. You can see it here on the screen, and it is outside of the DC Workhouse Reformation Historic District here. This is the Workhouse Arts Center. But with the 2001 memorandum agreement, we do fall within the lines of that being eligible for the historic district. So, but this is the building location currently. So this is an existing heating plant that was constructed in 1993 for the Workhouse Arts Center, and it was, I think, decommissioned in the early 2000s. So it has mainly been used for storage currently for the Fairfax County landfill over on, I guess you could say, east of this map here. So this is the Workhouse Arts Center, and then coming along, our building will be directly along this path line coming into the site. These are some existing photos of the building here. This is the west elevation along this side. This is the south elevation looking down towards the landfill. This is the east elevation at the back of the building here. And then the north elevation looking kind of east as well. And I just put some additional site photos to kind of explain what is currently going on. So there is currently underground tanks right in front of the building and a lot of concrete asphalt, which this photo image one kind of represents. And then there's also a drive coming along the back side here that connects with the landfill. And so we will maintain this drive coming along for them. We will end up removing the perimeter fence that is currently here to come along the backside and provide gates for the landfill so they can still access this drive, but we will have a gate kind of cordoning off our location as well. And this picture represents just the bicycle racks and the tables that are currently on site here. And then the other item to note is there is currently a county trail coming along the site here, and that path will be maintained with our project as well. So that's kind of a quick, brief overview of the current location for the building. So moving into our site, this project is I guess you've probably read through the report, but the goal of this project is to create a home for the Historic and Archaeology Collections Facility for Fairfax County Park Authority. And so we are renovating that existing heating plant. And then we also have a small loading dock addition. And then we are doing some additional site work, such as restoring a driveway path to the site, providing a small parking lot, some additional parking here for the county trucks and archaeology trucks, and then just finishing some of this drive for the fire marshal requirements for the building. But the site is fairly flat. As you could probably tell from the photos, there is a little bit of an elevation drop along the south of the building along this side, but everything else is fairly flat. We have some brush that we will be removing along the front here, but there will be existing vegetation that will kind of be cut back, but will semi-remain. And this is an existing tank that is, it's a ground tank that we will modify for stormwater. And so we will have a fence coming along and brush kind of that will block this area as well. But there is an existing generator building that is to remain, that is located here. And this is that county path coming through the project right now. And so our pathway to the front entry of this building is coming along this way. And then we have a ADA path coming along this side of the building to create access to the back. I did provide some preliminary lighting. So we are currently in design development. So some of these items. We're still working through design, but these are our preliminary design options for lighting. We will be providing site pole lighting and then exterior wall sconces along the building. We will also, like I mentioned earlier, have to maintain this perimeter fencing going along the building, and it will be an 8-foot tall chain link fence, which is similar to the chain link fence that's currently on site. And then we also will be providing a dumpster enclosure, which is located here on the map. And it will be wood or composite material, maybe a composite material just for maintenance, and it'll be a darker color. And so these are just images to reflect the character of that. So briefly, this is just to show you the floor plan. I won't go through this too much, but this is the existing building here. So we are renovating the interior, we're maintaining the shell, and then providing punched openings. I'll talk about this main facade here in a minute, but we are adding a new entry and some decorations to this facade. And then this is the addition that we have on the project. And then we are adding a second story within this space as well, which is what this encapsulates. So this is the west elevation. This is the front. This is the entry into the building. And this is the loading dock addition that we have. I showed the difference in color is mainly just to show the new versus the existing building. The goal is to use brick that will match the existing building. I have a sample here now that is going to be similar, but we'll do mock-ups on site to make sure that we are going to be as close as we can to the existing building. We are going to use GFRC for the cornice material, and then right now we are looking at a gray color for the roof because we are looking at putting a new roof on the existing building, and it'll be a standing seam metal roof. And then we have a darker railing pink color for some of the painted doors and railing elements that we have along this building. And so this is the west elevation, and then this is the east elevation. So on the opposite side, where we have the path coming along and just a ramp and covered pathway to get to the back access here. And this is the north elevation, primarily just showing the existing building and our facade of the loading dock here. And then we are providing some punched openings to the office spaces along the side. And on the south elevation, this is our loading dock entry. So it shows the door coming into that side as well. Due to the collection storage being mainly located along the south elevation, we are not providing openings into that space. And I think that is the end of this current presentation. I'll leave it on that elevation.
All right. I guess before we get to any of the members, Liz, is there anything you want to say before we jump into going around the horn and asking folks thoughts?
I'm going to introduce Amy Wells. Amy works with us. She's a senior archaeologist, and she did the work out here, so I'll let her make a brief presentation. Amy?
Thanks, Liz. And thank you, board members. If you've been to our fine workhouse facilities, you've seen that for at least since 1917, the landscape out there has changed quite a bit. And what we found with the W35 building is in that 100 or so years span, there were a number of grading and filling events on the property. Often the most common event was a filling event where we found fill layers from anywhere from 1 to 10 feet deep, and then grading down to bedrock. And so there is no archaeological potential left in this particular parcel. But if you've got questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
I'll let the various board members go around and ask all their questions. Thank you, though, Amy. It's good to hear from you. I guess we'll start with the one who might have those questions. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am so happy to see this project move forward so that we will have a new and improved curatorial facility for the archaeological and historical collections. And it is equally thrilling to know that there is no archaeological site outside that will be destroyed by the work that will be done on this building and its expansion. So with that, I just say I'm ready to vote to go ahead with this project. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allery. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The roof slopes in photo 1 on your what cover sheet was that? Page 3 of your presentation appear to be dramatically different than in the drawings. I assume that is a question of perspective. Is that correct?
That's correct. This.
Okay.
Yep, we are maintaining the existing roof slopes.
Okay, so you're putting a new roof on, but they're on top of the existing structure.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So then the addition, the question I have there is, what was the design inspiration for the arches and the pediments and such? I mean, where did that come from? What was your design inspiration? Where did that overall design come from?
Sure. Since we are within close relation to the Workhouse Art Center, we drew that inspiration from the Workhouse Art Center. We wanted to complement the arches that are going on there as well, and the typical architectural characteristics.
Okay, well, I would certainly echo Michelle Aubrey's comments about it will be wonderful to have a state-of-the-art curatorial facility for the Park Authority's collections. I applaud that. I'm a little concerned that we're creating a false sense of history by having a facade design that fairly closely replicates the workhouse architecture on a 1993 building. And so that would be my primary concern there. I will defer to the other members of the ARB as to whether or not my concerns are significant or not, but I wanted to express them. That's my only comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. Move on to Ms. Wan.
Yes, I share same comments with Mr. Burns. Besides that, may I ask a question about the topo, particularly from the front of the building connected to the access road at the front? Are they have a significant drop, or are they pretty much flat?
So the topo from the front of the building?
From the front, right, all the way connected to the big parking lot. Right,
yeah.
Right.
So this is not a significant difference.
Okay.
I can't read the topo on here, but it is, it won't be difficult to just extend this drive. The drop off is mainly in the back.
I has been cited a year, 2 years ago, and I noticed there are quite a topo change somewhere at the back of the site, probably further down, not near this building. So that is what I have memory with. The second question I want to ask is, you mentioned about addition. Is that addition at the front, or I try to figure out from the drawing where the addition is.
Sure. Yes, that's on the front of the building here.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see. Okay. But that addition has the same roof as the main building at the back. So basically.
So this back here is the existing building, and this in the front is the addition.
I see. Oh,
So-
okay. I see. Yeah, I do have shared the same concern as Mr. Ben has, and that is all my comments and questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Swan. Mr. Kalinski.
All right, thank you. I'm going to commend the applicant. It's a very well put together application. The presentation is very easy to read, and it was, was able to quickly ascertain what was going on here. So thank you for that. I see this as a somewhat difficult design problem for the applicant because it's a decorated shed. And I saw where they drew their design influence from. Perhaps a little bit too literal. My biggest concern is that there's a kind of a hierarchy issue here where the front door wants to be more prominent, but it's set back behind the new addition. I think the materials, the colors, I think it's all very close, but the kind of copying of one of the workhouse gable ends on the new addition may be the thing that just pushes it a little too far over the top for me. So if it were just toned down a bit in terms of its reference and something done to, let the hierarchy of the front door stand out a little bit better, I think we'll have a successful project here. Right, those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Ms. Murray.
I share the previous concerns about creating a false sense of history. I think the design is just a little too close to the actual architecture of the workhouse and is somewhat, and I think it should be less an accurate representation and more a concept, or perhaps something totally different in the front to make the front. And I also agree with Mr. Kalinski about the front door, not be that it could use the hierarchy could be established in a different manner. But that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Orr.
I have nothing further to add.
All right, Mr. Plumpy.
I agree with all the other architects that have commented on the building that less is more, I think, on this one. I think the bottom line is keep it more simpler and don't try and replicate what's already there. I did have a question, not a question, but a comment. I'd like to say your trash enclosure, I know you said it was going to be made out of composite and so forth. Something like that is brittle and they get broken. So my suggestion would be we just approved a trash enclosure for the buildings at front 123 there. I forget what the number of those buildings are off the top of my head. I think there's the ones right in the.
Aren't you thinking of the Laurel Hill trash enclosure, Joe?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking the ones that we just approved for the outdoor cafe that's going to be proposed along 123 there, and there's parking.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. For that one. Sorry, we've approved quite a few trash enclosures.
Yeah, that
I'm
one.
sorry. You're right. We did those too.
Yeah, those are more robust. I think if you can maybe replicate that, that would go a long ways, I think, so there's consistency. It's, if I recall, it may be out of wood, but it's metal post, it's durable. It's not made out of composite, I don't think. I think it's of a darker color too as well, or natural wood. So I would recommend trying to do with that, kind of copy that. I believe it was buildings 13 and 15, if I recall, the ones that are at the end of the green, at the end of the open lawn area.
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then make sure the grades work out properly. The light fixtures, LED. I'm assuming that you may want to convert to LED, but if you do, please make it match the color renditions of the current metal halide and other lighting that's out there, so it doesn't stand out differently. I guess the pathway will go across your driveway, right? The path, the existing trail path. My assumption is it'll the path is going to stop. You have whatever material you're using for your driveway, if it's asphalt, concrete, gravel, I have no idea. So that would just take precedence and people just walk over it. That's not an issue. And then the chain link fence there, is it vinyl coated or just regular old zinc coated silver?
Sorry, it's just regular silver.
Okay, and that's what's out there now. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Correct.
And I'm just wondering in the future if we ever want to do a black vinyl, but if that's what's out there, keep what's out there. So match what's out there. Thank you so much. Good job. Otherwise.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. I agree with the architects as well as Ms. Murray. I will start with saying I'm super happy that this is happening. Having been to the curation facility that the county existingly has, and knowing that in my former employment, a majority of those materials were contributed by Fort Belvoir to that facility, and how much work it took to keep that facility up to code considering the constraints around it. This is much needed. So I'm happy that this is actually something that's happening. That said, I think I agree with Mr. Kalinski in particular that the materials and things you're selecting seem great. I don't necessarily have a problem with those. You're trying to be sympathetic and compatible, but the facade proposal is too much in my mind. It's really trying to build this connective tissue that for a subordinate structure already is trying to elevate it too far. I actually encourage trying to do something, innovative here and not trying to replicate exactly, what is seen ahead and trying to elevate a subordinate building to a place of, hey, look, this is also part of this, but change some. Instead, it's a subordinate building that's been repurposed, which is great. Again, we can show that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a little bit more of I think I like the idea of calling out some of the gable features and some of that, but it feels like we've blocked in the facade, if looking at it right now, of a previously historic building. And that's while I think we talked about false historicism, while many folks won't go back to this part of the Workhouse Center, they'll see it and they'll wonder. And I'd rather them wonder instead about what's that neat building back there? And that's the county's archaeological collections. I can't really go in there unless I get permission, but I'd rather it be more of a testament of reuse of a building that otherwise would kind of look more disused. So softening of those ideas, toning down with the details would be preferred by me. I think you've gotten a lot of valuable input from the other board members, but I think if it came as this was for an application, it sounds like we would definitely not be able to approve it. So something a little bit more sensitive. I'll also point out that obviously there are board members can provide a little insight. So if the county wanted the opportunity to reach out to one of the board members to seek some input on that. Obviously, it can't speak for the whole board, but we could provide some input on some of those changes to those details before you come back for another workshop or for approval. I would obviously also turn to any of my other members who have anything else they might want to add now that the other members have talked, since this is a workshop. Let me mute myself.
Let me just throw in there that the color change of the roof is a significant improvement. You get accolades for that.
Sounds good.
My apologies about that. As you can tell, my son got a smoothie. Yes. Any other members that? And obviously, Ms. Miller, you're open to ask questions and stuff too. As a workshop is meant to be more collaborative, not just hey, listen to us talk at you.
Okay. No, this all sounds great. Thank you for your input. Some of the comments you've listed, especially about the prominence of the entrance and being set back and the loading dock being in front, are all things we've discussed as a team as well. And this project has, just by the nature of it, we are trying to maintain and utilize that existing building as much as possible. We have a limited budget scope, but we needed a loading dock and we knew we wanted that loading dock placed in front. So, but we will definitely continue working on developing this, and we will utilize the fact that we can reach out as well. So I think we heard a lot of good input, and we'll look forward to coming back to you as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you again in the future for another workshop or an application in the future. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Cool. Once you get control of the presentation again, we will move on. That is our only workshop session item. Now we will go on to presentations.
And Lily, I'm going to give you the presenter mode.
Presentation today is for the Willington at River Farm Historic Overlay District Zoning Ordinance Amendment. And this is Lily Yagazu. I probably butchered that. I apologize.
That is
Nicole,
correct.
Nicole, can you actually give me presentation mode? This is Laura.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got it? Oh, yay. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad I got that. And obviously we have our always famous Miss Arsenault as well, ever dealing with our new HOD situation. So good to have you too, Laura.
All right, Laura, you should be good.
Thank you. Let's see. Here we go. We just have a really, can you all see that? Let me see if I can get it in presentation mode. Does that work?
Yes, we can
see the presentation. We just see it in
great.
PowerPoint mode.
Can you see that? Okay. Can you still see it? Okay. Anyway, so tonight we're here to give you kind of an update on where we are for Wellington at River Farm Historic Overlay District. You'll probably know it was approved. Hold on one second. No, it's out. It was approved on April 13th at the Board of Supervisors. So we have our first historic overlay district, brand new in like 40, 50 years now. So that's really exciting. If you listen to the motion, we did have a follow-on motion that related to a state law that was passed. And it took effect immediately, which I think, and Lily, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like April 7th or April 8th that was signed by the governor. Oh, April 7th. There it is on the slide. Thanks, Lily. But what this did was it allowed a couple things. It allowed public access to any historic area, landmark, building, structure, or land, and no subdivision may occur within a historic overlay district unless approved by the ARB or appealed by the board. But so those two things are key, but the only parcel, how they phrase the legislation, that it applies to is the Wellington at River Farm Historic Overlay District. And they did that by mentioning it has 2 easements on the property, one by the National Park Service, one by the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, that it's bounded by parkland and the Potomac River. So it's very specifically written to say the Wellington at River Farm property. So Lily, when we went back and, oops, did it go away? Oh, okay, there we go. We went back and asked the county attorney's office what we would need to do to kind of adapt this legislation. And what we ended up doing was proposing basically immediately a zoning ordinance amendment to the proposal that we just approved. So Lily Yagazu has been working very diligently with staff and will be putting out a staff report very shortly. And I'm going to let Lily talk specifically to the language that we are proposing to put in the zoning ordinance.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the ARB. As Laura mentioned, I'm Lily Gazu, working in the Zoning Ordinance Administration branch of DPD. So what the proposed zoning ordinance amendment, which was, as Laura mentioned, approved with a follow-on motion when the board approved the establishment of the Wellington at River Farm Historic Overlay District, or WHOD, is to basically analyze the code section SB 1457 and make the necessary changes to our zoning ordinance. The proposed zoning ordinance includes changes to the ARB powers and duties, to the administration part or section of the HOD in the zoning ordinance and to the recently adopted regulations for the WHOD. Currently, the zoning ordinance limits the ARB's authority to only review and make recommendations on subdivision application plats. What the proposed zoning ordinance would do is grant the ARB additional authority to hear and decide applications for any proposed subdivisions, including any subdivision plat, plan, or construction plan of any parcel that is within an HOD and whose district-specific regulations require such ARB approval. So that would be one change that would be implemented if approved in ARB authority and duties section. The second one would be the amendment would also propose the same language to provide basically for the ARB to hear and decide applications for subdivisions in any HOD regulation, and it would also clarify the standards by which the ARB must conduct its review. And these standards include that the ARB approval must include a determination that the proposed subdivision will be compatible with the historic nature of the district, including with its landmarks, buildings, or structures. And then it would also include language that the ARB's review would also include considerations of the standards that are already in the zoning ordinance when the ARB reviews other types of applications, for example, rezoning, special exceptions, special permits or variants in site plans, in any other project that comes before the ARB. And the third section of the amendment will be specifically to the WHOD. In this section, the reason Laura briefly mentioned is that the WHOD is located adjacent to a parkway and is bounded by the Potomac River, which meets the first condition of SB 1457. And additionally, the WHOD is encumbered by two existing easements that were added after January 1st, 1973. And with the existence of either one of these two easements, the WHOD meets the second criteria contained in SB 1457. And so the changes to the WHOD provisions would include that the ARB will again hear and decide, excuse me, on applications for any proposed subdivision. Furthermore, new provision will be added in the HOD section allowing the board, in conjunction with proposed development or otherwise appropriate review, to impose or accept any conditions or restrictions it deems necessary, which may include a condition to allow public access to an HOD, and in this case, the only HOD that meets the requirements of SB 1457 is the Wellington at River Farm WHOD. And this requirement would be as permitted by local, state, or federal state laws. That basically summarizes what the proposed HOD zoning ordinance amendment to the HOD, to the ARB powers and duties, and to the ARB HOD review of the ARB section does. That concludes my presentation. Just to give you the hearing dates for this zoning ordinance amendment, which is scheduled before the Planning Commission on June 9th and the Board of Supervisors June 22nd. It has a very short turnaround time, granted that we just got this authorized on April 13th when the WHOD was approved. With that, I conclude my presentation, but I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's a lot to take in, folks. A lot of legal stuff to take in. I guess rather than going around, I would just look to see if any members have any comments or questions for staff about this, just so we could get through them. And you might have some questions for clarification, so please feel free. I've got all of you pulled up on my screen. I can see you all. If anyone wants to chime in. Mr. Burns, I see your hand up. So, sir.
Okay, looking at the language in SB 1457, I assume that the constraint on when the easements have to have been put in place means that there's another house south of this that is contiguous with the Potomac River, the National Park Service, Mount Vernon, and that will not apply to this. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was question number one. The second question is, Laura, can you put back up the language about not affecting adjacent residential areas or whatever that was? I was here. It was like will be compatible with and will not adversely affect any residential area. Does that mean within the historic overlay district or any adjacent residential area? It's a little vague the way it's phrased.
I defer to you, Lily, but I think that means compatible with adjacent. It should be adjacent residential area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Laura's correct. If I may add to Laura's comments, when the WHOD regulations were adopted, as you know, the WHOD is only one parcel, but it's within an R2 zoning district, and it's adjacent to residential properties all around, except where it borders the Potomac River. So this was following on that, and the board would still be considering any adverse effect to the adjacent residential R2 zoned properties.
Okay, and then the very last balloon or bullet point there is may include a condition to allow public access to the WHOD. Does that mean people can walk across these properties, these residential properties, because it's within the WHOD?
So the WHOD only applies to the river, the Wellington River farm property. The adjacent properties are not within the boundary of the WHOD.
So that middle area is not applicable in this instance. They have to get through the residential area to get to the actual historic overlay district boundary. Is that correct?
There's only one access point to the Wellington Historic Overlay District, and that's from East Boulevard Drive. But there's no, there's no access. We're not proposing to have public access to the adjacent residential properties or anything like that.
Okay, so my comment in thinking about this and the fact that this is historically open land that maybe becomes subdivided is that on that access point back to the HOD from the George Washington Memorial Parkway, that there be no fencing or perimeter plantings in the front yards of those properties. So to preserve that open character, the Park Service has the easement of open space against the parkway, and the WHOD presumably will keep open space. It'd be nice to have not just the width of the driveway going back there as the open space that connects those two.
There's a separate easement on the Wellington property that's like 2-point-something acres, and it's just for the Wellington property. It's not, the same easement doesn't apply to the adjacent residential property. I know there's like I need to pull up a map. Hold on one second.
No, I understand that the Park Service has the first 200 feet, I think, if I recall this correctly. And then there's the area that could potentially be R2 residential. And then there's the historic property on the river.
Can you all see that map? This is not the best map, but it just has the, so the easement goes here, John, right? And then you're talking
Laura,
about.
can you zoom it in a little bit?
Sure. Sorry.
If that's possible. I know you're working with.
Is that better?
There you go. That's better.
Yay.
It's much more
Okay.
visible.
You don't really need to read it. This was just the first map that I found. But the easement map, let's see. Let me see if I can find the easement map because that'll just make it that much easier. There you go. Let's see. Okay, I want to stop sharing that one. I want to share screen. Share, here we go. It's gonna take me a minute. Let me zoom out. Okay, okay.
There you go.
That's a little bit better there. So there's the two easements. That's the outline of the historic overlay district and the two easements. So John, your question again was, there's a separate deed easement for the Wellington property that stops at the Wellington property line. So it doesn't apply to this, to the single family dwellings right here. There is existing fencing and trees that line the property now along the property line for East Boulevard Drive.
Yeah, my suggestion is that not that this be incorporated into the HOD, but that the ARB, in reviewing proposed residential development in that middle, I assume the white space is the potential development area, that in that white space that we try to minimize, try to maximize the visual connection between the open space of the Park Service easement leading down to the easement that protects the property against the river.
So you're basically talking about this corridor right where my hand is.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Like basically
exactly.
from here to here.
Yeah.
There's a, yeah.
That it shouldn't just be a little narrow corridor.
Right.
That
Sorry.
Visually, it should be broader than just the necessary access.
This whole area.
It'd be nice if it was as wide as you made it, but yeah, but anything would be helpful.
Right.
Thank you.
But in
That's
that
my only
general
comments.
All right. Any other ARB members, questions, comments?
Mr. Daniel?
I believe that Mr. Kalinski?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just, has there been any formal pushback on this historic overlay district? I know it's been rather rapid in the establishment of it, but has there been any neighbors or even a property owner who's had any comment on it?
I can share the letter from the American Horticultural Society legal representative, which was John McGranahan. And they came out and asked a bunch of questions about the speed of which this was done and asking basically for a delay, not necessarily saying they don't want it, but asking for a delay to get more information. And I will send that letter around. But that was the only verbal testimony and written testimony that we got, kind of not necessarily in opposition, but questioning kind of the process.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other members? I'm not seeing anybody indicating.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am, Miss Aubrey.
I listened to a presentation the other night. Had nothing to do. It had to do with the with River Farm, and the presenter, who is a historian for the county, made mention that there had been an event earlier this week, a press event connected with River Farm, that Mr. Stork and the state attorney general and Senator Surival and some other dignitaries were present questioning or making, I guess, a statement, so I heard, making a statement that they were investigating the what was meant by the donators, Ms. Hop's original donation, you know, of the $1 million that she gave the American Horticultural Society to purchase the property, and that they were going to continue their investigations. But this was apparently an event. I did a little searching on local news and saw there was a Washington Post article. I mean, we're talking like yesterday. So, but it's very unclear to me what that really was all about.
So there's, thanks, Ms. Aubrey, for bringing
Sure.
that up. There was a press conference. What day was today? Today's Thursday. It was yesterday at 11:30, and you're correct, Supervisor Storks, Representative Serval, and a bunch of other people were there. What it did have to do was the Attorney General is, as you mentioned, is investigating if the donation by Ms. Hopt in the 70s to buy the property, basically, and had asked for it to remain open to the public, if that's a requirement that the American Horticultural Society has to abide by. That with the kind of donation and that request from her, does that still stand, and what does that mean for the American Horticultural Society? It doesn't have anything to do with the historic overlay. I mean, it has to do with the property, but doesn't have anything to do with the process of the historic overlay district. But I did know beforehand that the Attorney General was investigating that piece. Kind of, there's like 40 different pieces and processes going forward with River Farm, and just one of them happened to be the historic overlay district proposed by the county.
I mean, something else that was mentioned was in this presentation I listened to was that another offer had been made for purchase of the property by the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust, and that this had just been submitted the other day, and that it was an offer around the appraised value of the property, a little under, and that the board of the American Horticultural Society was going to meet tomorrow, Friday, tomorrow, to look at that offer. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. It doesn't surprise me that they're looking at another offer, but I have not been involved with that piece of this puzzle.
I think I just want to add one more thing, because it occurs to me, Mr. Kalinski asked this question about have people raised issues. I have also heard that of the board members of the American Horticultural Society, that 5 of them have come out making a public stand there against the sale of the property for commercial purposes.
Thank you for that. Yes, I saw that article as well. But that's beyond me. But thank you for bringing that to light. Like I said, there's multiple different pieces moving forward, and the county felt in order to protect it, we would like to add the historic overlay district, and then the state added that special legislation. So that's kind of 2 methods of protection, and then now we have to see how the property plays out and sale and who purchases it. But I am excited to hear there's another offer on the table, so step in the right direction.
So I guess, Laura, I think a lot of the members have already asked questions about River Farm, but I want to try to understand everything that was presented here, because not that special legislation, from what I was understanding, now the question is to expand that authority outside of this to other subdivision decisions. No or yes? Because I was not following that presentation.
The legislation, and I can pull up the legislation, or
Yeah, no, I'm
maybe
talking
Lily
about
can-
what was being proposed to be changed about our bylaws. I get what the legislation was saying, but I was trying to.
It's not our bylaws, it's the administrative duties of the Architectural Review Board in the zoning ordinance. So the duties.
Well, I mean, that still changes our rules.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
So what they did, and Lily, correct me if I'm wrong, the language basically didn't allow for the ARB to approve subdivisions and historic overlay districts. So they split that section into two and said they don't allow it unless it's allowed in the district specific zoning ordinance piece. So
that's okay. That's what I wanted the clarification on.
Does that make sense? So that our normal zoning ordinance piece now just says Architectural Review Board shall review and make recommendation on, and this is a step further and says shall review and approve.
Okay.
But we had to change the administrative duties piece because of the fact that it didn't allow us to do that. So it literally says doesn't say.
So we will now have approval authority in this special circumstance.
Correct. So what it does is it allows us to have that, but only if it's within the district specific zoning ordinance section. And right now, the only one that it will be in is Wellington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will be Wellington River Farm. All right. Yes. I wanted to make sure because I thought I was following it and then I got confused in the presentation going, wait a minute. Because I mean, I would obviously love to be able to have to prove authority over all subdivisions within HODs because honestly, many times things get a little crazy in HODs with some folks trying to do things. But Mr. Burns, I see you raising your finger.
Following up on that, and since we have several potential new historic overlay districts coming down the pike, is there any sentiment from the county to adding that language to these new potential historic overlay districts?
We're going to have to go back and ask the county. Oh, sorry, Lily. Go ahead.
No, I was going to add this specific authority granted to the ARB is called out in this specific state code. And in order for any HOD to be eligible, it would have to meet the location requirement. Which is next to the river in a park, and it has to have those two types of easement.
So we can only get that if it meets that legislation requirement. And so is that wording going to be careful enough to make sure that that's apparent when if another one HOD does come up, that it'll catch that not only is it that it has to be in that zoning ordinance, but it must meet those criteria. Like, I mean, I just want to make sure we don't miss that, obviously. It sounds like you're pretty astute on tracking that.
We're looking, yes, we're making sure that those requirements are included in the HOD section, in the ARB's purview section, as well as any HOD that meets these criteria. And currently it's only the River Farm HOD. So we will add some language in there. Our county attorneys are looking at it.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess one question I would have then, Laura, I suppose maybe it's for you or Nicole, is since you said there were two, Nicole mentioned that there were two meetings going on, right? Or maybe it was Lily that mentioned there are two different meetings that are going to happen. Should the ARB participate or provide any comment during those meetings since they will be affecting our authorities by those decisions?
So thank you for that. We were going to get to that in our next steps, but yes, since it's a zoning ordinance amendment specifically, it doesn't come under our purview to make a motion on necessarily. So I would defer to you all to determine if you want to write a letter or if you'd like to make a motion supporting this language and this zoning ordinance amendment. And once the staff report, and the other thing is timing as well. So the timing is going to be a little, I think, when is it? Did you say so we're going to miss it by one day. So June 9th would be the Planning Commission and June 10th would be the next ARB meeting. So we came to you as a presentation because we didn't necessarily need a motion for it, but if you wanted to write a letter in support to show that we've talked it over with you and talked it through with you, I think that would go a long way, and I would definitely recommend doing so. But I would once again defer to you on whether or not you feel we need to
I
make a
was
motion on
also
this.
looking at it obviously because those are public meetings and that the ARB could obviously also be present at those meetings if we wanted to be. Most likely the chairman of the ARB. I signed myself up for that commitment.
Yes,
but I would look. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there's two public hearings, but there's also a community meeting on, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my calendar, May 25th, which is a Tuesday. That's going to be our public outreach to the community, like addressing these issues. And we'll have, and Lily, we can send around a straw man with the language, can we not, that shows exactly what we're talking about. Like, we don't have it tonight necessarily, but the split between the language and ARB duties and administration, and then where it goes specifically to the Wellington Historic Overlay District. And you can see the markup of where the language is being changed with underlines and highlights and things like that. So we can send that around as well.
Yes, we hope to get the language finalized this week, and hopefully we'll be able to publish the staff report, including the language, the proposed language, by May 19th. So we will have it ready before the community meeting and clearly the 2 public hearings as well.
I am of the mind that obviously since this is driven by state level legislation that's granting us newer authorities in certain situations, we'd be hard pressed to say no to or be against such a provision provided to us by the state. So I don't see, I would not see any of us being against the concept of a motion or a letter in support of that. I don't know if any of the board members have a preference one way or another. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I may propose a motion that the chair of the ARB be authorized to issue a letter regarding this issue, and that if there's any question about whether it's appropriate, that we defer it until the next meeting, at which point we would direct the chair to attend the Planning Commission meeting the following evening.
I hear that was a full motion, correct, Mr. Burns?
Yes.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, that was Ms. Murray. We have a motion. Hearing no comments, all those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't sure whether I heard Mr. Burns correctly or not, but the Planning Commission meeting is on June 9, which is the day before the ARB meeting. Did you say that not the day after?
I believe Mr. Burns was empowering me to write a letter as long as I felt it was appropriate, or as long as there were no questions about its appropriateness.
Okay.
Right, but I believe Michelle is correct, that I transposed the dates of the 2 meetings.
Okay.
So why don't I just amend the motion so that we authorize the chair of the ARB to write a letter to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors regarding this issue, and that, if there's any question about what to do, that we take it up at the next ARB meeting, and then we'll convey the letter sometime after that.
The chair would ask a friendly clarification. Could we make it clear that it's indicating our support? Because it's a little ambiguous by said motion what the letter is that I'm writing for or against. And
do we have a second? Is it available?
Ms. Murray is your second.
Yes. Okay. The maker of the motion accepts the clarification that this would be a letter in support of the proposed changes to the ARB authorizing ordinance.
Yes, and I thought that was a necessary addition.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Seeing it as accepted by the motion maker and the seconder, hearing no other debate, I look for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstentions. Hearing none. That motion passes. I am so compelled to write a letter. It's fun to make those, isn't it, John, when you're not the chairman, right? All right. Thank you very much, staff, for that excellent presentation. Laura, I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about Wellington at River Farm while you have the floor right now, because we did defer your item to July for the design guidelines.
No, I did want to say thank you for deferring that. I think there's a couple outstanding issues we want to make sure with language and some other issues that were brought up. So what I would recommend is if everyone could still please review it. And then we're going to push it out to July so that we can get this amendment piece in there as well, instead of coming back in June for the approval and then coming back in July to deal with the amendment, because the design guidelines will mention the piece about the ARB having review authority over subdivisions if it gets approved. So
Okay.
We're just going to come once in July, but if everyone could review the Wellington HOD design guidelines and get the comments back to Nicole and myself, and then that way I'm asking for them by the end of this month so that I can
Okay,
turn
that was
them around.
the next question was, when did you want
Yes,
them?
I've learned I need to set a deadline, May 28th, which is the last Friday of this month, so that we can turn around and send them to traceries to get the changes included. And then, like I said, the only change after that would probably be adding the amendment piece in, and then we'll come back for everything in July, the final
right.
design guidelines in July.
I encourage any of our members to get your comments in to Nicole and Laura by the 28th, and particularly given how fast this one is moving, we definitely want to make sure we get as much input into it as we can, so that this is obviously a very property that is a lot of interest in it. All right, if that's all we have on that one, we're done with presentations, and we will move on to board and staff items. First item on the agenda is review and action on approval of the previous month's minutes. Nicole, did you receive any revision requests?
We did. We received a few editorial comments from Miss Aubrey. I don't believe I received any other ones.
All right. Are there any members of any revisions that they want to add? Other than Miss Aubrey's? All right. Seeing none from the big grid I have of all of you, I would look for a motion that would approve and pay the recording secretary appropriately. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the April 2021 minutes as amended by comments submitted by members of the board and authorized payment to the recording secretary.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So I think Mr. Kalinski got in first. I'm going to give it to him.
Sorry, Jason.
I'm crying inside.
All right. We have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All abstentions. Hearing none, the motion carries. All right. Treasurer's report.
All right. I tried to use the space bar to unmute myself, and all it did was mess up my spot where I was on the agenda. Treasurer's report, the April balance is $19,498.91. There was just a couple budget adjustments. The payment for the secretary was posted later than when they ran the report, so that will show up in the next month's report.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicole. Administrative, I don't see any administrative items. All right. Now, discussion and update on reports. One Fairfax policy.
Yeah, although I'm realizing maybe that should be under administrative. But anyway, I sent it out to you guys a few weeks ago, the One Fairfax policy, which is looking at things through an equity lens. And so there is a form that you guys need to fill out and sign. It's very simple. It's electronic signature, but if you need any help, please let me know. And it's just acknowledging that you know that there is a One Fairfax policy and that you are aware of it, not that you agree or disagree with it, but they are asking that all of the BACs please review that and sign. And like I said, if you need help with the electronic part of it, please let me know. And they do need that, I believe, let me check here, by the end of June, I believe it is. So if you guys could do that, that would be great. And you don't have to let me know. I have a way to, I guess once you guys sign it, it just kind of automatically goes into a file, so I can check that. So I'll know if you sign it or not, so I can send out reminders as we go. There was also the video that I mentioned sending to you guys. So it's not required viewing, but they're definitely recommending it. So if you have some time, please take the time to watch it. They're doing a lot of good work towards equity and how Fairfax is looking at pretty much everything that they do. So.
Yeah, I highly encourage you to watch the video. This is something we've been talking a lot about on the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force too. Since I'm a Restonian as well, I've been participating in some of those discussions as part of the plan in addition to the heritage stuff. I've got an update on that today about how heritage is going in that. But it's worth looking at, and obviously please definitely follow up and sign it, because we will start harassing you all in a very polite way that needs to happen.
And it is by the June 30th, so.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah.
All right, Richmond Highway, BRT.
Yeah, so the latest update is that the FCDOT and FTA sent in their addressing comments that they received from different consulting parties to the state, to VDHR. Our comments were not included because they were late, even though originally we were told that they would be included. FTA decided that they weren't going to be, although they did address some of them in their comments. So that's where they are right now. And I'm assuming after that, they will be coming back to us with determinations of effects. So that's where we're at with the BRT.
All right. That's frustrating, to say the least, with the comment situation, but I guess not surprising sometimes. So I'll say from my time with federal agencies. All right, seeing no comments or questions or indications from board members, let's move on to Association Drive. Tons of new news about this one.
There is some news. There's a couple things. Obviously, the ARB sent their formal comments in a letter regarding mitigation to FCDOT and FHWA. I have not received a response from them about it, but I'm assuming because they're very similar to what was mentioned at the consulting party meeting that they may address it later. But the other news, which I forwarded to you all, I think yesterday or the day before, is that Association Drive Historic District is on Virginia's list of most endangered sites, which is great information. And also Wellington at Wellington at River Farm is also on there, which I didn't know was happening either. That was a surprise too. But yeah, so it's on the list, which Fairfax County was made aware of a few weeks ago, that it had been chosen, which is great. I'm not sure how much it will change things, just because the federal process is the federal process. But and I'm not sure if anybody who's been involved with it wants to comment. But obviously, it's always great news to get some awareness to historic properties that are threatened.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, the first thing is I would like to tell everybody on the ARB that I honored your consensus that I not nominate Association Drive Historic District to the list of Virginia's most endangered. Another person did that, so it wasn't me. The second thing is that I was interviewed by Preservation Virginia in advance of the announcement coming out, and I stressed to them that this is the importance of these properties is they represent the context of 20th century buildings in the Commonwealth, not just in Fairfax County, and that it's something that we need to begin to pay closer attention to, and so those comments didn't make it into the article, but that was the gist of what they told me. They also told me that they would like to interview me for a blog that they're going to post on May 21st. They haven't followed up on that, so since we're getting like a week away from the 21st, I'm not sure that will happen, but we'll have to wait and see. And I have received no negative comments from anybody in the county. So.
All right, Ms. Murray.
The culprit was Jordan Tannenbaum on the History Commission. I see you all can put a name to it. And by the way, he was reappointed to the advisory council and has been elevated to vice chair.
Yeah. Now, mind you, Jordan and I have been communicating offline for a long time about this and how to manipulate things and put things forward. Yes, but he did step up, and I knew that, but I wasn't going to break the silence.
Well, and I think I think this board has been we've indicated a lot of strong feelings about this situation for quite some time now, as well as I think the comments we put together, we obviously, while recognizing the situation presented by Fairfax DOT and FHWA, I think the most direct thing we could do at this point was comment on what they can do then if they're going to have to resolve this. And I think part of the suggestion that John put together was looking at it pragmatically in the sense that just focusing on the building that will be affected is not really going to be enough, considering we're affecting a collection of properties, not just one. And that's something that I think a lot of narrow focused consultation misses in that. So I appreciate it, John. I appreciate your vow of silence there, John, but you know, I think your well-known interest in this type of architecture in the area, so I have a feeling maybe you'll still get that blog interview, though. You don't have to go through the same hoops for press for blogs as you do for newspapers.
Okay.
All right. Any other members? Not seeing any. All right. Let's move onward. Homes Run Acres.
Yeah, so we are after a break for staff to kind of go back and just delve into the data and start, getting things in order. We're going to have our next work group meeting at the end of this month on Wednesday, May 26th. And we're going to start looking at, we've gone through and we've talked about some of the structures that were possibly contributing or non-contributing. And so now we're starting to do what you've seen in Holland Hills, is putting out the lists of what may be contributing or non-contributing and giving the work group time to comment on those. Because obviously there's some that we didn't bring to the work group because to us they're very obviously either contributing or non-contributing, but we want to make sure that we're explicit with the work group about what we're saying before we get down the road and have the list in the staff report. So we'll be doing that. And then also the tracers will be coming to do an introduction to draft design guidelines for Homes Run Acres. And after that, they will be able to send out that draft to the work group in the community to start commenting on that.
All right. Not seeing any from any of the members. Thank you, the members who have been participating in those work groups on these. We appreciate your efforts in those. And eventually, I know these are going to come flying down the pipe soon enough, and we'll have to be ready for them in the actual board meeting soon enough. So thank you for all your guys' work. Moving on to our next one, Holland Hills HOD.
Laura, I think you're still, yeah, okay, there she is.
Yeah, I'm still here. It's like I might as well since I'm here. Hi everyone. So Holland Hills, we do have public hearing dates for Holland Hills. We'll be going to the Planning Commission on September 22nd and going to the Board of Supervisors on October 19th. There's a lot of time in between that. The supervisor has made it known that he would like a community survey to happen, and that survey format is still, survey questions and survey format is still to be determined, but we have started working on that. And that will be probably sometime in August or September, right before the public hearings for the community survey. And we will be publishing the staff report before that survey comes out so that those in the community can have the survey, can have the staff report to look at when they're considering the survey. So moving on and moving forward on that one.
All right, any comments from ARB members? Oh, there you go. John, I see your hand.
Sorry, I always have questions. Laura, I have a recollection from the last Holland Hills meeting, not a HOD meeting, that there was some pushback about the Secretary's standards that required differentiation of new design, and the Holland Hills Covenant requires harmony and conformity as exterior design. Has that bubbled up to you?
It has not. Well, let me not say this. It probably has at some point, but the design guidelines are structured by kind of an outline in our zoning ordinance. So that's what we're going off of. And it says following the Secretary of Interior standards for that. I know it puts, there's still, how do I say this, to be determined on how this process will work with the Civic Association of Holland Hills, between getting approval from them and getting approval from the Architectural Review Board for proposal. But from my understanding, the proposal should go to the Civic Association before a building permit is filed. And if that's the case, then the Civic Association will most likely get to review it before it even comes to the Architectural Review Board. So that's my understanding.
Okay, that's if I can just offer one comment, and that is the Secretaries of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, which I think is what you're referring to, are intended for buildings that have a significant age difference between new construction today and when their original construction was. In the case of both Homes Run Acres and Holland Hills, that's a relatively narrow time period when you consider things historically. And so that's something where maybe some discretion about how differentiated something has to be to make sure that it doesn't compromise the historic character of the community. That's all I'll say.
I agree, and I'll support you on that. I think it ultimately would come up to the Architectural Review Board to make the determination about how to vigorously, because the design guidelines are recommendations, correct? So we start there and see where we go. And so I'm assuming that would come up in negotiation along with materials, style, that type of thing. But
Thank
correct.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Laura. Any other comments or questions on Holland Hills at this moment? Not seeing any. Again, thank you to the members who are helping work with that one as well. I'm sure this one will be coming to us soon enough as well. Be ready. Rezoning cases.
Sorry, one
Laura,
more thing.
Go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, I forgot to say that. You just sparked my memory. We're going to come to you all on July 9th, ARB meeting, the same time for the Wellington ones, to bring you the Holland Hills motion or review and action as an action item at that time.
This is the overlay district recommendation.
Correct. Okay. So that'll be in July.
All right. And I want to work with staff on making sure, I think we were talking about making sure we have a tighter motion for that for next time.
We're on it.
Thanks a bunch. All right, look for fun in July. All right, rezoning cases. Nicole, I think you've shared all that with us. I don't know if there's anything you really want to point out.
I just want to highlight one. There is a new zoning case, an amendment to a previous one for Dulles Discovery South. So it's within the Sully Historic Overlay District. And so they have just applied not that long ago, so they're still early on in the stages. But they were approved before for, I can't remember, like a 3 or 4 story building that had gone through the ARB and stuff like that. They're not doing that now. They're doing a shorter 1-story building, but it is still within the Sully Historic Overlay District. So they will be coming possibly in June. But also they're going to be doing a site visit. I don't have a date yet, but if there are 2 ARB members that would like to go to do the site visit just to get the visuals to see where it's located, obviously that always helps. You can't have more than 2 because otherwise, it's a public meeting. So yeah, so if Lise, raise your hand. But yeah, if you guys want to know, I don't have a date, like I said, but I've asked them to let us know as soon as possible.
All right, well, Elise indicated, or Ms. Murray indicated interest. Any other members have interest?
Sure, I would be interested.
Okay, I was gonna say, I also had interest, but obviously, Mr. Zellman, Ms. Murray, if so, if we want to coordinate on working that out, yeah, I think that would be great. Get some boots on the ground, but not enough to form a meeting.
And I will say too that because it's within like a restricted area, you will have to give a lot of information about yourself to get permission to go on the site, including your social security number. So if you don't want to do that, I'll just let you know that now.
I might have to back out now. I don't know. Just kidding.
All right, I will let the staff coordinator, Zach Fountain, know and get your emails to him, and we will follow up.
I've been involved in this since it started when it was going to be over 55 housing.
Ah.
I was gonna say, Elise, I think that you know a lot about this. I think it'd be great to have you out there to.
I've seen the iterations.
All right. Any other comments on any of the rezoning information that Nicole sent out to us? Seeing head shakes. All right. That takes us on to, it says any other, I guess I would throw an update in here because I think it's an update, not new business, is about the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force. So I have deeply started drinking the Kool-Aid of being involved in this task force. So I'm not only involved in the heritage side of things, I'm commenting on the various components where I can about heritage. I have become invested in contributing to other components of the plan because I thought, I better be a helper. I live in Reston, and if we're going to have ARB investment, we shouldn't just sit there and be quiet the whole time. I do try to be the old buildings and historic property guy who comments a lot when we talk about reusing properties rather than building new all the time, and that reuse should be considered. That being said, we did have a presentation at the last meeting on Monday about the Reston survey results. And concerning the update to the heritage section of the comprehensive plan for Reston. It's not a very big section in the Reston plan. It mostly speaks to the fact that obviously there are historic properties in Reston and that there is an HOD in Reston, and that, obviously that it doesn't go into a great deal of detail about that, but I think it could go a little further. And one thing is it is going to recognize that there has been survey work done in Reston, and we're talking about having that partially represented with a map showing the properties that have been identified as potentially eligible. And we had a presentation on those properties that was done by Denise, and it was a really well put together presentation. And I would say most of the members of the task force seemed very happy to see the presentation, particularly because a lot of them were happy to see the pictures of these buildings back in the day. So there's a lot of the task force membership has got a lot of history and age in Reston. So we got a lot of folks on there who I feel like knew Bob Simon personally, and hung out with him. So that was, I think there was a lot of strong interest in this because some of the properties that survey identified were ones that everyone said, of course. So that made a lot of sense to them. I did highlight, however, that pointing these things out in a map would be very helpful to making people more aware of the opportunities that exist in Reston. Not so much calling them challenges, which I think is the perception that a lot of folks give. I talked about how eligibility is, and listing in itself is honorific, and that does not in any way imply that they cannot do something with their property unless you're in the HOD. And in your HOD, you got to go to the ARB. And the supervisor indicated to me that at least one property owner had expressed concern by this, and we had an offline little chat conversation about the fact that it should be made very clear to that person that that is not restricting the use of their property. That identification. We also talked about the 50-year rule, which I clearly see that I am a little bit at odds with staff about how much they want to talk about it. And I pointed out that it's not really a rule, it's a guideline, and that there are exceptional cases. And that the properties that just fall beneath that 50-year threshold are pretty much going to be it almost by the time the comprehensive plan update's done. And so we really need to keep that in mind moving forward. I am going to work with staff to try to work on crafting some language. I don't know how much time I might have to get input from the ARB and the timelines they're asking for. but I would just ask any of the members to go back and look at the existing 2017 section of the comprehensive plan. If you have any recommendations you might want to point out to me, please let me know. What I'll say is, again, it's meant to be very matter factual. I think some things that it is missing could be the emphasis on the fact that these are resources that the county has identified as important, and that obviously trying to reutilize them and identify opportunities for them is important. I pointed out the Bowman Distillery a couple times during my times on the task force about there's a great business, an agribusiness opportunity right there. Let's get that reopened and operating, because there was conversation about the W&O Trail and how that would be a great resource to interlink when folks get off on a bike, go get yourself a pint, right? Anyways, that's about all I've got to add about that. But all those meetings are live and you can see them online if you want to. But that's on my 10 cents there. All right.
I did remember one more thing I wanted to mention.
Yes.
Is so we want to do a tour for the ARB at the historic courthouse in the county. And we were talking with the historic courthouse manager and archivist Heather Bollinger, and it's been a long time, I think, since a lot of folks have been out there. And obviously with the master plan process that's happening, it would be great to have the ARB, if everyone's comfortable, come out and do a tour. I don't obviously have a date, but we just wanted to give you guys a heads up. And they're also starting work on the jail at the moment too. So they're replacing the roof.
Nicole, so is that going to create a problem too? Because I think there are probably a lot of us members that would like to go see the courthouse, and I feel
my guess is it would be external tour. Maybe it would be internal, like inside, interior. I'll have to ask you that.
I'm just worried about us creating a meeting again.
Oh yeah, no, it would have to be, we would have to say it's a public meeting and we would just advertise it as such. So you could get some random folks that show up. I know we've done that before for other things, like a year or two ago when we went to Harrison House, because we had multiple ARB and multiple history commissioners, and that was a public meeting, but nobody ran.
I was going to say, because I know when we've talked about the courthouse in the past, a lot of members have expressed interest in the property. And so I would the History Commission also possibly be getting this offer?
That's a good question. Laura's nodding her head yes, so I will say yes.
Send that to our brothers and sisters over there as well. Be fun for us all to intermingle every once in a while. So I think, am I seeing an interest from members about doing that? Seeing some head nodding from everybody here. Okay, it sounds like there's a lot of interest on this one. Maybe this needs a doodle poll.
All right, yeah, I'll work with Laura, Denise, and Heather, and we'll figure out a good time for everybody.
All right. I don't know. I don't think there are any other updates, unless another member has an update they want to bring up.
I do.
Yes, Ms. Laura.
Nicole sent across the video for the design awards, the Design Excellence Awards. We're the ARB is a sponsor, for those who don't know, and the county did a great job of putting together a video. And these are, of course, new structures, and some of them were redos, but they did a great job of putting together this video, and we're hoping to continue doing that because I think it's the right thing to honor the architects. And anyway, hopefully we can work with whoever funded it this year to get them to do it again next year. I don't know, Nicole, you might have more to say.
Yeah, I will. I'll reach out to Marcia Collins, who I think a lot of you know and have worked with in the past on the design awards. And obviously it happened again because of the pandemic, because usually they have the in-person award ceremony. But I think, like Kay said, I don't know if anybody's gotten a chance to watch it. I think somebody else today said that they had. But if you do, it's really great because you get to hear the architects that actually did the designs and kind of what their inspiration was behind it, which you don't usually get at the awards ceremony. It's usually just talking about what was built. And so I really enjoyed it. And it was great hearing also from the design committee about why they chose it. So it's really worth it. And I agree with Kay that it's hopefully something that can continue in the future.
Yeah, I really do hope it does continue because I feel like that's something that gets lost in the award ceremony of mostly just people walking on stage, taking pictures and clapping. Not that that isn't well deserved.
Agreed.
Any other members want to comment on that one? Otherwise, thank you, Kate, so much.
Yes, thanks, Kate. I tried to watch a video, but I had trouble. I don't know if it's my technology, but I couldn't read that particular format on my computer. But I did look at it, you know, through the slides. It's just unfortunate I missed the background there. I'll give it another shot though.
All right. Moving on to correspondence and announcements and old business. Any of those, Nicole? All right, seeing none. We already talked about the letter that went out. Thank you for all the input into that. There was only minor changes on that letter regarding the Association Drive, and we had no feedback really from the Board of Supervisors or Supervisor Alcorn about it, so it seemed like there were no real major concerns with that. New business, revisions to bylaws for member attendance. So I think you would all see, and when you got the admin items, you should have had as one of them a potential bylaw revision. Thought, correct, Nicole? Or am I missing it? Did it not go out?
No, I was waiting to hear back because you were waiting on comments from
Jason. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, I wasn't gonna say.
so no, I will preface that, and I guess what we'll do is send it out after this meeting. Is I provide it to Nicole after a discussion internally and with talking with John with a revision to a proposed revision to our bylaws regarding membership attendance, which is a little bit more of a stringent policy regarding the ARB members' ability to attend the meeting, as well as if you are unable to attend and have an excused absence, which we don't go into great deal about what that is, but that does not relieve you of the opportunity of providing comments on items submitted, meaning that you could provide comments to submitted items in absentia, basically, and submit them to the chairman and the ARB staff so that they could be presented to the members when you are unable to attend the meeting. And one of the big things about this is that after a serious number of unexcused absences, the ARB could start to take actions to actually ask a member to resign. Ms. Murray.
Has this been by the county attorney yet?
Well, that is one of the things that we want input on.
I would suggest that it go to the county attorney before it comes to the board. The History Commission has been dealing with this for forever. And before you make a whole lot of plans, get the county attorney's office comment first. Because they would also have you had put in a removal clause.
Well, and that's something that my concern with getting at is because of the fact that we're meeting digitally right now, the ability for us to be here, except for maybe the technological challenges, which the county is working diligently to accommodate, makes it very easy for everyone to be at an ARB meeting right now. We don't have any travel constraints that hit us. Obviously, there are always emergencies that come up, family emergencies, health emergencies, and other things, and those are always things that we would want. We would never expect a member to not be excused in those events, but we want to make sure that we are able to be at our full quorum capacity at all times, and that people are able to be here, and that is recently just become disconcerting to me a little bit. And so, after a little internal conversation, I proposed a suggestion to Nicole and Jason to look at. In addition to that, I also proposed a suggestion for our bylaws regarding our consulting party status. That was something that came up right before the pandemic, that we kind of got criticized for how we jumped in as being a consulting party. And the discussion with the county attorney was we needed a process for that. I put together and crafted a draft bit of language that basically requires us to notify folks that we're doing that. I think I've been on record in the past of saying I am more than happy to notify folks, but I did not want to make it so much of a mother may I as so much of a I'm making you aware that the ARB is intending to invoke our right to be a consulting party. And that we would share that in advance of that decision with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors and the appropriate supervisor for that district, and that when we provided comments, just like we did this time, we would make sure to make those parties aware as well. But that also comes from my position in my personal professional career, that we have a right to be a consulting party, And so I don't necessarily want to hobble that in our bylaws if we don't have to. So that was put together as well. I've asked Jason to look at it first, since he is obviously an attorney on our group, and just get his thoughts. But that was one that I also wanted the county's attorney's thoughts on before it came before you all. But I wanted to bring both these issues up to make sure I got to hear what members had to say about it, because obviously I can't make those changes in a vacuum. But I did think one that we were overdue to do, and the pandemic kind of sidelined it. And the membership one is just something that's starting to present itself as a challenge that I think needs to be, I think we need to bone it up right now, because as it is right now, it's a little too loosey-goosey.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Zellman.
So here are my thoughts, and I don't want to certainly speak in any way ill of the county or the county attorney. I do feel like, normally, in my law practice, I represent a lot of individuals, I represent a lot of entities. A lot of entities have bylaws that govern how they handle their own ministerial processes. Even if there's an overarching entity that may have decided how that lower board was formed, the county, the Board of Supervisors has formed an architectural review board. Normally, the architectural review board, through its bylaws, has the ability to say, this is our expectation for membership, for attendance, for participation. My hesitance is that does not seem to have been generally the practice regarding our bylaws and our participation. It does seem like the county attorney is a little bit more involved. I certainly don't want to step on their toes, but so I can give you a viewpoint from my experience as, I guess, as an attorney, and then my viewpoint as an observer as to kind of how things normally function in our processes.
I would like to remind you that the Board of Supervisors have to approve your bylaws amendments, which is another reason you need to talk to the county attorney sooner rather than later.
Well, and then I guess what I would say is take this as the opportunity of, I'm also soliciting input from the members as to their thoughts on what I'm suggesting embarking on as well. Again, as I want to clarify, what I am looking for is that obviously members may be excused from attending, but we want to provide an opportunity for members that have an excuse, looking past any emergency situations. Obviously, something comes up the day of the meeting, I'm not, that's a different kind of situation. But if a member can't make it to a meeting and they've gotten all the materials that have been provided, and you need an excused absence, we'd look for you to provide any comments on the items up for action or workshop, and those could be submitted to me as well as to Nicole, county staff, so that we would have that for the record, and then we could present them for any item saying, only Ms. Murray has said these things about this project, and that could be that you may have very little to say, but it's still allowing you the chance to provide input, particularly because all this stuff is so easily provided now in the current system we're operating under. So that's what I'm aiming for. And I think it was, Nicole, after 4 unexcused absences, that was when,
Correct.
I mean, so it's also pretty liberal too, in the sense of, I'm not talking 2 or anything like that, but right now it just wasn't very, I don't want to go draconian, but I also don't want to, I want to look at something that kind of elicits input from members.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
My thought on it, I guess, talking to the substance of it, not from a legal perspective, we meet 12 times a year, and we're providing a public service, as has been mandated to us by the Board of Supervisors. So if we're going to talk to the county attorney and get approval from the Board of Supervisors, I think our, position has to be is if we're going to continue to provide the service and function as intended, we need to ensure that we have a quorum and have enough participation in order to carry out our function. And if we have, folks on the board who consistently can't make meetings, that makes it more difficult for us to make a quorum, and to, there could be circumstances where we don't have a quorum, and then we can't, applicants then are getting delayed, citizens of the county are getting delayed from their projects because, we don't have enough people to take action.
And this has been a situation in the past. We're not in that moment now, but I think prior or right about your time was when we were struggling at one point, particularly when Mr. Plumpy and Mr. Burns had to abstain at some points from items. We were cutting it very close to being able, I think there was at least one time where we actually had to cancel a meeting due to lack of quorum, if I remember. We may have been able to pull it out at the last moment and make it happen, but it's been touch and go, and I want to avoid that situation.
I rolled in with my kids to a meeting so that we had quorum once.
And that was probably one of our best meetings, I have to say. The audience was probably one of the more enjoyable ones.
I remember
My daughter
babysitting.
probably appreciate that.
Any other members have any comment or input? Again, I think I'll take Elisa's recommendation and we'll go to the attorney about that. Mr. Plumpy.
Yeah. I had a real quick comment. After the pandemic is relieved so that we can meet in person, will there also be a video opportunity too as well?
Nicole.
That's great, because I was actually going to mention that. I was speaking with Denise the other day, and Elise can probably talk to this too. The History Commission has amended their bylaws, or are working on it right now, and the county is going to allow for a hybrid kind of meeting. You still have to have a quorum in person, but you could have, in theory, other members remote. So I was going to mention that to you, Chris, and Denise sent me the language just today, and so I can send it on to the ARB. And so that would be something, if you're going to open up and start amending the bylaws, as Elise said, and you have to go to the Board of Supervisors, you might as well include all of that too.
So just to add on to that, Nicole, so you're saying you'd have to have a in-person quorum versus a combination of that.
Correct. That's what I believe is allowed right now. So that would mean at least 6 people in person, but that would in theory allow.
I got
And
it.
I think that gets to why we want to make sure we have a full board membership and that we have active participation, because then in the event that we have a member that can't be there in person, they could participate digitally. I like that idea. I didn't even want to broach that because I've been really shy to even bring up the question about reopening, because as you heard me mention at the beginning of this, our space that we normally use is used for vaccine administration right now. I sat there waiting to see if I had any side effects in the very room which we would be in, and kind of felt a little nostalgic, but realized that space is obviously not available right now. But I like that idea, Joe, and definitely if we have language that the History Commission's looking at, this is a great way of engaging the public too, because some folks don't get to enjoy these meetings about this.
Then, and I'm sorry, one more question, Michelle. Is Miss Notkins okay? Because she has not been in these meetings. I'm concerned for her health and so forth, because I haven't seen her at these. Is she okay? Does anybody know?
I've spoken to her in the past few months. So yes, I can't comment specifically this month, but yes, I talked to her, she was okay.
Okay, good deal.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have inquired the same things, Joe. I know, and I asked, and so has John. We've all inquired about how she's doing, obviously. So, but obviously, any new, I think it's really just we want to have a freshness of policy here, particularly if we're going to start doing something like the hybrid, which was something that once we started talking about reopening, I think would be great, because a lot of these meetings, and not just from the members' perspective, but from the public's perspective, this is a great way for folks to actually see what we do instead of just reading minutes or not being able to attend. Why ignore the technology? Any other members, comments, observations? Yes, Mr. Zellman.
Well, one more comment, and this will kind of, I think, deviate slightly into what you were talking about, getting back. When do we get back to in-person? And maybe this is more of a question for Nicole and or Laura, with some of these bigger items coming up with potential, action items regarding these historic overlay districts and the potential desire I could see of some fairly significant public participation. Has there been any thought about, whether doing that virtually versus doing that in person? I just ask, I don't know.
Laura, Nicole, any observations on that? I know the county seems to have been pretty aggressive in just staying digital for right now.
I'll let Laura speak to it.
Defer up. That's a great approach. Nicole. I like it.
Yeah, I'd defer up if I could too.
She knows more than I do, so.
I will say that in June, the board and the planning commission are going back to meeting in person together. So I I would say it's probably only a matter of time till we get directive for the boards and commissions that we will be asked to go meet in person to. We haven't heard anything from that. All I know is from what we've had, we have these kind of things that happen relatively quickly, and then all of a sudden we have to react, just like going to virtual meetings and everything like that. So I can tell you for sure the board and the planning commission are going back in June in person.
Well, I mean,
so,
if they'll let us use their meeting space for our meetings, that provides great
well,
social distancing and tons of room.
part of it is that planning commission meets the same night we do.
Oh.
So
I mean, I could talk to
there's
John
one
Carter
thing.
and maybe they can just, you know, move it to later in the evening, you know, right?
You know, just saying. I mean, that's a thought
That's
too.
true.
And if we're amending our bylaws, could we move the night of the week that we meet? I mean, there's that. So I mean, it just, I don't want to do that. But
well, there are a lot of logistical questions that come up because where we
right.
do meet is a lot more closely constrained.
Right.
And obviously there's no mandate for people to get vaccinated. That's not a requirement or anything like that. Obviously, many people have availed themselves of that, as well as the board's members being offered that from the county too. And now it's you know, doors wide open right on that. But I think that is something we're going to have to think about too, is the space we meet in, so that we're providing the right amount of, you know, safety.
I think right before COVID happened, we started meeting in 9 and 10. Like, I feel like that was
We
such
had
a long
just started
time ago. I
changing
think we
that
had
around. You're right.
one
No, that's
meeting.
ages ago.
So that meeting, that room, I think was a little bit bigger, but there are larger conference rooms that we might be able to avail ourselves of, that we could be farther apart, you know, if need be. But I would not venture to start making those decisions until we get the directive that boards and commissions shall be meeting in person.
We wait with bated breath.
I will say too that for the Department of Planning and Development, we've said Labor Day, we're going back half in person, half depending on the hours, but 2.5 days a week to 3 days a week, and then teleworking the other half. So there is talk at the county about us going back. It's all fluid, of course, but I know for sure the board and the PC are going back in-person meetings in June. So it's only a matter of time before that kind of just falls down to the
Well,
rest of
we'll
us.
keep waiting for those updates. Michelle, you had your hand up, I think, to a question about the bylaw questions.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to confirm what you had said earlier. There was a meeting that we were held when Mr. Boland, our prior attorney, when he was the chair, and we had to cancel the meeting because not everybody who was supposed to come, who had said they would show up, showed up. And we didn't have a quorum. And it was very embarrassing. And he, in particular, was extremely embarrassed by the situation and wrote a long letter to all the board members discussing that. So even if you had enough people, you know, to squeak by, so to speak, which is what has happened with some of the Laurel Hill action items, if one person just by chance got sick or had a car accident or something happened at the very last minute, you would not have a quorum. So I think we need to be operating in a situation where we're not just down to the very last person. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I'm not going to suggest we do this, but I think we need to be aware of it, that when Mr. Stork first was appointed or elected to be a supervisor in Mount Vernon, he wanted everyone on his box to have term limit. And he was really adamant about that for a while. And I think a lot of individuals discussed that with him and he backed down. But there's always a possibility that a board of supervisors might want to come back with, well, let's have term limits on on all the boards. And there obviously are pros and cons for that situation. But just be aware of it. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And Nicole, even though I will undertake Elisa's recommendation to go to make sure get the county attorney's observation on it. Please share that what I've put out there, just because I would still love to hear any thoughts you all have on what I put together. John gave me some of the inspiration in language, and I adapted it. The bylaws one regarding 106, I kind of just took a shot at it because I deal with 106 in my professional life, but I don't want to necessarily go to the county attorney without some observations from all of y'all about that in hand, recognizing that they may come back and disagree with some of our decisions. But I think this input's really helpful. I agree, Michelle. I hope that conversation doesn't come back up, because I really I think we've impressed that it's difficult to get the expertise that is needed to function on this board. It isn't like we just walk down the street and just, black bag every, architectural historian or architect, walking on the street. You got to have someone, or let's just go about landscape architects. I feel like there's only one Joe operating across the whole county, So or archaeologists, let's not even go there. I mean, that's even tougher, I feel like. So I hope we don't get into that discussion. I just want to make sure we're obviously a little bit more aggressive in that approach because of the amount of influx, as everyone's pointed out, that's coming in. I won't talk y'all's ears off about that anymore. But thank you all for hearing me out on that one. I believe we have one other, unless any other board members have any other announcements. Mr. Burns. Unmute yourself, sir.
I'm sorry. Nicole, is it possible to give me the ability to share a screen?
Yeah, for sure. Give me 1 second. I will pass over the presenter.
I want to share something that is being undertaken by our favorite Fairfax County agency, the Fairfax DOT. And so, share. Okay, now I get the pick, I hope. I believe it's this one. Let's see.
Must be soapstone.
No, it's not soapstone. Other end of the county. Are you seeing an aerial photograph of the Mount Vernon Memorial Highway in the vicinity of Gristmill?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, FCDOT is proposing to fill in the gaps in the Mount Vernon Memorial Trail between Mount Vernon, the Mansion, and Route 1. And this is the section between, right adjacent to George Washington's Grist Mill and Distillery, which you see in the upper center part of that photograph. And to do that, they're obviously going to create this 10-foot wide path, which will connect up to Gristmill Woods Way, where the kind of rust-colored path already exists. But they're also going to put a bridge over Doe Creek. That's the kind of magenta thing in the middle of the picture. And it will be a fairly substantial bridge. If you look in the lower left, there's a cross section through the existing highway bridge and the new pedestrian bridge. You'll notice that the beams are deep enough to carry an almost similar load to what the road is. And this is within the, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but the HOD core district incorporates kind of this area and then on closer to the Woodlawn Mansion itself. And so this falls within that. And I'll switch to another screen. And this is a cross section of what that will look like from the gristmill. It consists of cast stone with a little cast in place, gristmill, grinding stone there. And none of this has come before the ARB, even though this is within the core part of the Woodlawn Historic Overlay District. I brought this to Nicole's attention, and she said, let me ask them. And I don't know if you've gotten any answer on that, but I'm rather appalled that these guys seem to have not learned anything from their experience with the soapstone connector. and they're just going ahead willy-nilly with their plans with any consideration of what's going on. I happen to know the wife of the miller for the grist miller, and I've asked for their input. I'm hoping I might learn what Mount Vernon thinks of all this, but I'm rather appalled at this kind of phony colony facade that this bridge will present to people who are at the grist mill looking down at the creek. And I would think a lighter, more discreet, more background kind of a design, a contemporary design, to make sure that there's no confusion between what's the historic stonework here on the grist mill or this stuff on this bridge. So, Nicole, can you add anything more to it?
Yeah, after you emailed me, I spent about a half a day trying to find out where this was coming from. Because no, I talked to Laura, Denise. We have not done any kind of, we've not been consulted on this at all. And so we'll be reaching out to FCDOT because obviously they need to come to you guys. And obviously, in theory, we should have, DPD Heritage Resources should have been brought into the loop too. So yeah, no, totally agree with you. Also, Ryan asked John if you want this attached to the minutes, the slides that you presented or showed.
The two slides?
Yeah.
From an informational perspective, it would be useful to have it as part of the minutes. You might also simply put in the link to the website from which these were downloaded.
Okay, I think I have those, Ryan. Ryan, I can send those to you.
Yeah, but this has been going on for a while, and I am embarrassed to admit, if you notice that this is a public meeting in December 2019, I had no idea that this was coming down the pike. I only learned about it, perhaps Michelle and Steve may have learned about it from the Mount Vernon Gazette, a little local rag down here. And I'm reading that and thinking, what? And then so I started digging, and this is what I found.
Hey,
I just
John,
wanted to share that with everyone for their information.
John, this is Joe Plumpy. So right now, how do they cross the stream now? They don't?
There's no path. The path is discontinuous from the, was it Old Mill Road, I guess, up near Grist Mill Park, all the way to Route 1. The only part of the trail that is complete in that stretch is in front of Grist Mill Woods, that housing development that we reviewed a number of years ago. It's directly across from the Arcadia Farm land there.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to.
Yeah, it's all new. They're having to get easements, and there's some property acquisition involved.
Hey, John, thanks for sharing this. This feels like we haven't made any headway with FCDOT, because it would seem like anytime you would hope they would have come to us with some kind of question about this to seek our input here.
Well, it's like the road that what's the pain on my side is the road in the Lorton prison, that little windy road that goes by the ball field and so forth. Mm-hmm. They just, it was a pastoral effect. They just bulldozed it and made it into a super highway. This is a sad point. That's okay. Yep.
Well, yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other opportunities for us to share input on this other than I don't know if that window is already passed for us.
Well, I'm thinking of contacting my local district supervisor, Supervisor Stork. Not that he doesn't have enough ARB activities going on in the Mount Vernon district, but I think this is a serious issue. That there are county regulations that say heritage resource values need to be taken into account when planning projects in Fairfax County. I mean, that's
well, it runs counter to all the effort going on in that district right now. Shouldn't, if we're already emphasizing the importance of other properties so much that we're rushing to protect them, we're not keeping an eye on the things that are already well known in the area of having value.
Yeah.
So,
John, are they still? This is Laura. Are they still in the planning phase of this?
The website says that I think these were 60% drawings in terms of the status of it, but they're talking about construction being completed, starting soon and being completed in a year and a half.
Because I'm wondering if the only time, and they should have come, I'm not saying they shouldn't have come to us earlier, but I'm wondering if we would get triggered when they pull permits and or site plan. And then they'd come to the ARB, but then that's too late. And I understand that. I'm just saying that might be the time when we would.
From these renderings, this is already designed.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the regulatory process in which we would most likely get it would be when it comes in for site plan or building permit. But at that point, it's almost a loss. Like you said, they've already been designed. But anyway, moot point.
Oh, good luck, Nicole.
All right. Any other members have any input they want to share on this one?
Oh, how do I end my share here? Or can you just kick me out?
I might be able to do it. I can kick you off.
Okay, just.
No, maybe not.
Okay.
Now.
You're sharing the screen. Let's see. Stop sharing. Okay. Poof. Okay.
All right, there we go. All right. Any other new or other business? Hearing none. Nicole, I know you have some new business.
I do. So I let Chris know earlier today that I am going to be leaving Fairfax County at the end of this month. So this will be my last meeting with you all. I'm sorry to say, but yeah, I am moving on.
Congratulations. I'm hoping are worth offering. This is good,
Sorry,
right?
What's that?
This is a good move for you.
It is, yeah.
Excellent.
I don't have any plans as of yet where I'm going. I have some leads, but you know, it's been a long year and a half, I think, for everybody. And this is just what I needed to do right now.
Good. Well, best wishes.
Yeah, I told Nicole when she told me this earlier, I was already suffering the shock of being in my office for the first time in 14 months. And then she dropped that bombshell on me. And I told her that we have been obviously immensely appreciative of everything she's brought to the ARB in her time managing it and assisting Laura even before that. And so it'll be sorely missed, and especially of her skill set. We were lucky to have her, I would say. And I think I can speak for everybody that we're going to wish you the best in whatever endeavor you choose to pursue. And we're sorry to see you go. Absolutely. And I'm sure Laura over there, whose camera is off, is probably even more sorry to see you go.
No, that just means you're going to see more of me. So I'll be back. I'll be back in June, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay.
And I will say, I really appreciate all the time I've spent with you guys. I've learned a ton. I've really enjoyed just the conversation and the experience that you all have, and I've learned a lot, and so I really, really appreciate that.
Well, again, thank you very much, Nicole.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it. All right. If there are any other comments from any other board members, any other new business, otherwise on that bombshell of news, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Right, and a motion to adjourn is always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear. Oh, Mr. Plumpy's opposed. All right.
I can end it electronically. Don't worry.
Yeah, and no abstentions. I see.
I'm opposed to Nicole leaving.
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole, so much.
I'll miss you.
We
too.
really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Nicole.
With that,
I'll let you know where I land.
Yes, please keep us updated. Laura, we'll look forward to seeing you back in your resuming your role. Thank you, everybody. I believe this meeting is adjourned.
Peace.
All right, bye everyone.
Take care. Be safe.